I exhort, therefore, that first of all supplications, prayers, intercessions, and giving of thanks be made for all men. The sin of prayerlessness. 1 Samuel chapter 12, verse 23. Moreover, as for me, God forbid that I should sin against the Lord in ceasing to pray for you, but I will teach you the good and the right way. Prayerlessness is a horrible sin. Prayerlessness is another name for unbelief. Prayerlessness is the partner of every vile sin in the world, as much as the saloon is the father of drunkenness and lust is the father of adultery. There is not a vile sin in the world, but that prayerlessness is a part of it, and real prayerfulness would have prevented it or cured it. John R. Rice once said, "Mine and your greatest sin is prayerlessness." The proof that prayerlessness is a sin. 1 Samuel chapter 12, verse 23. Moreover, as for me, God forbid that I should sin against the Lord in ceasing to pray for you, but I will teach you the good and the right way. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 17, pray without ceasing. Luke chapter 18, verse 1. And he spake a parable unto them to this end, that men ought always to pray and not to faint. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 18, praying always with all prayer and supplication in the Spirit, and watching thereunto with all perseverance and supplication for all saints. Mark chapter 14, verse 38. Watch ye and pray, lest ye enter into temptation. The spirit truly is ready, but the flesh is weak. Visit www.theintercessor.org for more information on prayer. The sad results of prayerlessness. Aside from the fact that prayerlessness opens the door to all known sins, it also causes God's people to not get what they ought to have. Many do not have daily necessities because they do not pray as they are commanded to pray. Matthew chapter 6, verse 11, give us this day our daily bread. What the sin of prayerlessness shows about our wicked heart. First, prayerlessness shows a lack of real enjoyment of God. Second, prayerlessness shows our lack of belief, Hebrews 11, verse 6. Third, prayerlessness proves our laziness. Fourth, our prayerlessness proves that God is not first in our love and interest, and that other things come first. Remember what the apostles said, Acts 6, verse 4, but we will give ourselves continually to prayer and to the ministry of the word. How to overcome the sin of prayerlessness. First, set aside a certain time and succession to pray each day. There was a missionary with the motto, no Bible, no breakfast. He said if he couldn't find the time to pray and read the Bible, then he would not take time to eat. Second, make it a habit of praying through each burden and request. Third, also make it a habit to pray about things as they come up. Fourth, leave off the formalities and let prayer be simply talking with God. Fifth, set out to follow the Bible examples and teachings about prayer. In conclusion, at its most elemental level, prayer is talking with God. Its most basic form is asking, that is, petitioning God for something. When we petition God with strong entreaties for mercy, begging for his divine favor, we are supplicating God. When we put ourselves before God, between him and those he intends to destroy, and petition to dissuade him from his declared course of action, we are engaging in intercessory prayer. When we petition God to let his wrath fall upon the ungodly, we are imprecating God to judge the wicked. Finally, all prayer ought always to be offered before God's throne with praise. Famous quotes on prayer. Charles Haddon Spurgeon, who lived from 1834 to 1892, once said, "Prayer is the slender nerve that moveth the muscles of omnipotence." E.M. Bounds, who lived from 1835 to 1913, wrote, "What the Church needs today is not more machinery or better, not new organizations or more and novel methods, but men whom the Holy Ghost can use, men of prayer, men mighty in prayer." Williams Evans offers an overview of the many facets of prayer. True prayer takes the character and form of worship, adoration, praise, communion, fellowship, intercession, petition, pleading, dedication, thanksgiving, blessing, yea, even silence. Sitting still, listening while God speaks, and receptive while he reveals. In Isaiah chapter 63, verse 7 to chapter 64, verse 12, we find praise, thanksgiving, pleading, confession, and supplication, all blended in prayer. So true prayer is a communion and fellowship with God, in which all the above described elements are blended and uttered in varying degrees of emotional earnestness from a breath to an agony. If we reduce the word prayer to its most fundamental element, it may be said that it simply and profoundly is nothing more or nothing less than talking with God. However, if we talk with God in constant communion, even during the hustle and bustle of daily activity, we should not suppose that this is a substitute for private or closet prayer or alone time with God. When we speak of prayer, we want to emphasize the importance of this constant communion with God, this prayer without ceasing, which is spoken of in the Bible in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 17. F.E. Marsh, in 1919, this great Baptist preacher, whose sermons and books continue to impact lives for Christ, believed prayer to be the secret to every revival. Prayer is a sin killer. No one can sin and pray, for prayer will either make us cease from sin or sin will make us cease from prayer. Prayer is a power bringer. It is the hand which touches the hem of the garment of divine grace and causes the life which is in the divine one to flow into us. Prayer is a victory giver. Bunyan's Christian found that the weapon of all prayer was sufficient to wound and defeat the adversary who would stop him in his progress as a pilgrim. Prayer is a holiness promoter. It is like the gentle dew which falls upon the thirsty plants and causes them to be refreshed and fruitful. Prayer is a dispute adjuster. Let any two brothers who are at loggerheads get on their knees and ask the Lord about any disputed matter, and they will find the Lord saying to their troubled spirits, "Peace, be still." Prayer is an obstacle remover. As Peter, when an angel came in answer to the prayers of the saints and delivered him from the prison of Herod's hate. And prayer is a Christ revealer, for it clarifies our vision and enables us to see the unseen. Praise. As mentioned in Daniel chapter 2, verse 23 and chapter 4, verse 37, as well as 1 Chronicles chapter 16, verse 29, properly speaking, praise may involve adoration, adulation, and thanksgiving without asking, whereas prayer essentially involves asking. Nevertheless, praise will always involve prayer, for after all, praise is offered before God's throne through prayer, talking to God. Furthermore, since God inhabits the praise of his people, as stated in Psalm 22, verse 3, and prayer is about getting together with God in order to talk to him, anyone who wants to commune with God must approach his throne with praise. Petition, Daniel 6, verse 7, 12, 13. John R. Rice wrote a book on prayer in which he argued that essentially prayer is asking. John Wesley emphasized asking as the fundamental definition of prayer, noting the repeated emphasis on asking as a prerequisite to receiving in the Lord's lesson on prayer given in Luke 11 verses 1 to 13. To petition is to request or ask, but not in a general, vague or careless manner. A petition is a formal request. Supplication, Daniel 6 verse 11, 9 verse 3, 17, 18, 20 to 23. Often, we find the words prayer and supplication used together. Daniel 9 verse 3, 1 Kings 8 verse 28, 38, 45, 49, 54. Acts 1 verse 14, Ephesians 6 verse 18, Philippians 4 verse 6. The word supplicate speaks to the earnestness of the request or entreaty, carrying in it the dual ideas of begging with such intensity. The beggar is made sick or weak from the exercise and earnestly reaching out with pleas and entreaties to curry the favor of God. It is used when the petitioner feels keenly his need for God's favor. Intercession, Daniel 9 verses 3, 4. The word means to come between, to stand before, to get in the way in order to alter a course of action. And with regard to intercessory prayer, the purpose is to importune God to turn away from his declared intention and forbear his fierce anger. For example, Abraham, Genesis 18 verses 16 to 33, and Moses, Exodus 32 verses 7 to 14, 33 verses 30 to 35, both importuned God to turn from his declared intention. Romans 11 verse 2. Imprecation, Daniel 9 verse 11, Jeremiah 7 verse 16, Jeremiah 11 verse 14, Jeremiah 14 verse 11, Psalms 69 verse 22, Jeremiah 17 verse 18. While Daniel does not use the word with reference to prayer, it is used in a context that reminds us of the imprecatory prayers of David and Jeremiah against unbelieving Israel. The following passages provide some examples of imprecatory prayers. Imprecatory prayer is petitioning God to judge the wicked.